Hello, this is Firefighter Tiger, co-host of the Public Safety Future Responders Podcast, back with another episode 3 of our podcast with my favorite co-host, Medic Dog.
What is up, everyone? This is Medic Dog.
And yes, we are back with another episode. This time we are going to be diving into the risk management practices, but this time we are going to be examining the practices of the fire service. So, folks, please bear with us since we do have sources that will be linked in the description that was published back in 2018, but still applies according to research. So, folks, we're going to dive right on in to talk about managing risk in emergency incidents. Please note that this is the fire service point of view. We will be conducting a law enforcement examination later on. So basically, in terms of risk management is recognized as an inherent and important responsibility of emergency response agencies on the emergency scenes, but it is also recognized in the day-to-day operations of the organization. Today, we expect the fire officers who command and supervise emergency operations to function as real-time risk managers, which involve making critical decisions very quickly with limited information. Folks, if you have a time crucial point, you need to make those time adjustments now, not wait until something happens. You want to try to prevent that before it happens. In terms of from the United States fire missions from FEMA, risk management is a fundamental responsibility at every level of the incident management procedures, whether it's your lieutenant, your captain, your fire chief, your deputy chief. Whoever's in charge is responsible for managing risk and limiting them to the best of their abilities. Command personnel must manage numerous risks and personnel at incidents. So, folks, basically, if you have the officer in charge, which is the OIC, basically they're the ones that command over the scene with additional help from other officers. So, for example, if a chief is the commanding officer that oversees all of them, he relies on his captains and lieutenants to oversee different sections from different sides of the building. Basically, before an emergency situation happens, develop an incident management plan and share it. An IC who establishes the overall strategic plan for an incident must identify and evaluate the risk involved in each situation. They must make conscious decisions about the acceptable levels of exposure to those risks. Supervisors who direct and regulate the activities of their subordinates at every level within the incident management structure must be guided by the IC strategic plan, including the risk management considerations incorporated into the plan. And folks, if you're the incident commander, please, if you got a plan, share it with everybody in your group. Don't be the one that has to say, I have a plan, and not say anything. I think you would probably agree, Medic Dog.
I 100% agree with that, Firefighter Tiger.
I totally agree, too, with that. Like it is also, too, all supervisors must continually evaluate the particular risk present within their assigned areas of responsibility. So basically, the lieutenants are responsible for their small crews. The captains are responsible for the lieutenants and their firefighters. The chiefs are responsible for the captains who oversee their lieutenants, who oversee their firefighters, and so on and so on. And in terms of that, under the National Fire Protection Association's 1500, which is the NFPA 1500 for those in the United States, defines the basic principles of operational risk management. The standards establish specific expectations that the officer in command of an emergency incident will manage the level of risk to firefighters as a fundamental incident management responsibilities. The risk management approach described in NFPA 1500 should be used as the basis for a fire department's operational risk management policies. A policy statement supported by a system of SOPs or SOGs, which will be defined in the comment section below for those who don't understand what those are, should establish the specific manners in which all members of a department, from the fire chief on down to the newest member, expect to operate at emergency incidents. The principles have been widely adopted as the standard operational approach to risk management. The section that specifically refers to an operational risk management was introduced in the year 1952 edition of the NFPA 1500. Basically, in terms, as we can both see, both in the fire service and medical point of view, pretty much if you have a plan, you must incorporate everybody together, not basically define, this plan includes you, and you, but not you, so to speak. I think you would probably also agree with that.
I do agree with that one, indeed.
So I'm so glad you do, Medic Dog. In terms of that, we are going to also be looking at with a systematic approach required. At every emergency scene, all members must work together. There is no I in team, as we are all familiar with. The individual in command of an incident is specifically responsible for managing risk at the incident. However, one person cannot be expected to apply these principles to an incident if the organization has not integrated a standard approach to risk management into its SOPs, which is the System Operating Procedure, and its organizational culture. To be effective, risk management principles and policies must be integrated into the entire operational approach of the fire department or emergency response organization. They must be incorporated within the duties and the responsibilities of every officer, supervisor, and member. So, folks, there is no I in team. Again, let me repeat that. There is no I in team. Team is TEAM, which means you get everybody together to work together as a team. There is no single person who is responsible for one thing. You, as a single person, yes, you may be assigned to a particular task, but that's a task within a group, so to make it easier for the entire group to work together. So basically, when you're working in collaboration, you can do it from A, B, and C. You get assigned A, B, C, D. Basically, one person gets an A, one gets a B, one gets a C, D, so on for the task. And then you all come back together to work together and share data and information. Medic Dog, do you have any comments you want to make?
I just want to say I 100% agree with that. And within a team, you must work together. If you do not work together, it is not a team. Like as in Firefighter Tiger said, you have to work together as a team, and also as an I said. But I 100% agree with that statement, indeed.
I so agree with you and with your remarks, Medic Dog. I'm so glad you have made those points along with it. Sorry, folks, I'm also paraphrasing from the article, which will be linked in the description, so I do apologize for copywriting information, as it's already been presented numerous times. And in terms of risk assessment, the most important and difficult concept in the operational risk management process is the actual determination of the types and levels of risks that are present in each situation and the degree of risk that is acceptable for the personnel who are operating at that incident. Which is actually true because every time there's an emergency scene, it is different than the last. You could be on a fire scene that has its own risk management situations, which is different than that of a car accident. Same thing that can be. There are similarities between a fire scene and a car accident, but there are a lot of difficulties. For example, among every emergency scene, you have the common objective of staying safe, regardless of what the situation is, whether it's a fire scene, a car accident, hazmat, medical, whatever the case might be. Safety is also the same importance for every common goal, but to achieve the safety of its members and that come with different tasks. So, in terms of risk assessment, there are 3 simple guidelines that define acceptable levels of risk. Number 1, activities that present a significant risk to the safety of members shall be limited to the situations in which there is a potential to save and endanger lives, such as if there is lives trapped in a car, a burning building, etc., etc. Number 2, activities routinely employed to protect property shall be recognized as inherent risks to the safety of members, and actions shall be taken to reduce or avoid those risks, such as if there are power lines going to a house that need to be shut off, alert the electrical company before you have to proceed. If the house is burning and there are lives in danger, foremost is, yes, you are there to save lives, but you also have to protect yourself. Protecting yourself is first, followed by protecting everybody else. And then, of course, number 3, no risk to the safety of members shall be acceptable when there is no possibility to save lives or property. Which basically means if there's nobody trapped, don't waste your time to try to save it. It's just going to burn to the ground. Just protect the area around it and just surround and drown, as the fire service likes to call it. And in the example in the article of a house burning where there's nobody alive. But basically, folks, when it comes to risk management, regardless of what scene you're on, pretty much every situation has a different set of risk management regardless, but most common things are usually the same in terms of the dangers of lives, a danger of property, and danger of yourselves and everybody around you. Such things as hazards to point out are your power lines, unsafe structures, unsafe working conditions, etc., etc. Risk management drives a strategic plan. In a strategic plan, folks, risk management always plays a role in the strategic planning because you need to know what kind of risk management you have and how to avoid it. In terms of the article, the strategic plan for a fire defines where, when, and how firefighters will seek to control that fire. An IC's most fundamental responsibility is to establish and implement a strategic plan to conduct an emergency operation, such as if there is a house fire, for example, burning completely, fully involved. You want to send attack lines around it to all sides and attack it as a defense mechanism, defending it from the outside. Once it is in safe levels of deemed by the incident commander to send an attack line in, then you can do so. But in terms of until then, you have to defend other properties from it. An IC's choice of operational mode is offensive or defensive, defines the rules that apply to everyone involved in that incident. In offensive situations, firefighters enter burning structures and attempt to control fire where it's burning. During the offensive, they expose themselves to all the risks present in that environment, such as heat, smoke, etc., etc. And the defensive mode is the complete opposite, where firefighters avoid many of those risks by staying outside of the most dangerous areas and conducting operations that limit the spread of a fire to an area that can be defended without exposing participants to unnecessary risks. Such as, folks, basically in terms of that, if there is a house fire, again, going back to that example, basically you want to be able to attack it from the outside and let it burn from the inside out. Unless there are people in danger, then you have to work it to a safe level to be able to go into offensive. Most of the time, it's best to be defensive before offensive, etc., and vice versa on other occasions. So, basically, in terms of the initial risk assessment, determination of acceptable risk and the choice of operation will begin with the first arriving officer, who must assume command of the incident and make an initial size up. Basically, folks, if you're the first officer on scene, do a 360 is what it's called. Basically, meaning you walk around defining all the hazards and giving a size up, meaning what type of building it is, what's the material, how's it built, what's it look like, how tall is it, etc., etc. And then at the fire scene, the first arriving commanding officer often has to decide if and when it's appropriate to enter a burning structure to conduct an offensive operation. If it doesn't look like it is safe to send in firefighters, it is best to just do a defensive attack mode, unless the conditions are right for an offensive. The choice depends on risk factors that are identified with respect to the size, location, and stage of the fire, as well as the capabilities of the fire suppression force. Do you have any other comments you want to make, Medic Dog?
Not this time, but I do want to say I do agree with that. You do not go into a burning building, even as a firefighter, unless it is safe to do so. Even though you have an air tank and an air mask, still you need to keep yourself safe.
Exactly, folks. Basically, regardless of whether you're a firefighter or a member of the public, safety is the number one priority, etc., etc. In terms of risk factors known and assumed, it is often impossible to attain and verify all the pertinent information before making an important strategic decision because there is a time-crucial effect that is playing into it. When there are lives in danger, you don't have that 1 hour save mode to try to get them. You have to make that quick and instant decision depending on the risks. Decisions that guide initial actions must often be made with a limited amount of information, making allowances for factors that are unknown. A rapid size-up seldom allows for a full evaluation of all the risk factors. An IC must consistently differentiate between factors that are known and those that are based on assumptions, experiences, and standard approaches. The IC must then place a priority on either confirming these assumptions or revising them as soon as factual information can be attained. So basically, folks, when an incident commander shows up on scene, they're going to do that quickly 360 degrees, give that quick size-up for all inbound units. And then as inbound units arrive on scene, it's basically going to make that quick decision based on that 360. And throughout the entirety of the call, you want to continue making that 360 to update information and make sure everybody's on the same page. In terms of responsibilities for an ongoing incident, an IC is responsible for determining the operational mode, whether it's offensive or defensive. Defensive is basically you surround and drown. Offensive is you go in and attack for the entire duration of the incident. After making an initial strategic determination, an IC should define technical objectives and assign resources to perform specific functions, such as the following of, if you're on a ladder truck, regardless of what kind it is, whether it's a Quint or whatever, basically a Quint, for example, you're going to be going to the roof for ventilation work. Engine crews are going to be your attack lines, and rescue crews are going to be your rescuers, / rehab backups. and also to an IC should also begin to establish a command structure to effectively supervise the operation. Whenever command of an incident is transferred, the responsibility for strategic risk management is also transferred. Folks, basically, in terms of incident command, you want to go to the next highest level. So if a lieutenant is currently the incident commander and a captain shows up, and if the lieutenant chooses to, he can move the command level up to the captain, and the captain assumes all responsibility and such for captains to go to chiefs, etc., etc. Responsibilities at all levels, regardless of rank. We're going to throw out all the ranks here, regardless of you being a firefighter, lieutenant, a captain, a battalion chief, a deputy chief, an actual chief. Officers and supervisors assigned at each level of the incident management organization must apply risk management policies within their areas of responsibilities by following the strategic plan and the associated rules established by the incident command. Keeping the incident command informed is one of their major responsibilities. That is especially true if changing conditions indicate the need to change the strategic plan, such as the following of basically, if you're currently in the defensive mode and conditions are right for an offensive, the incident command can make that determination and switch from defensive to offensive to send in people, and vice versa. If you're currently in offensive and the conditions call for defensive attack approach, then you can do so as well. The single most important reason to establish an effective incident management structure is to ensure that operations are conducted safely and everybody's on the same page. Basically, once you have an IC established, then everybody knows who the incident commander is. That way they can go to them, get their task, and get going on what needs to get done. Basically, in terms of, we're going to break down the roles between incident commanders, sections and company officers, individual emergency responders, and incident safety officer, on-scene risk manager. Starting off with incident commander, their responsibility is to expect to make strategic decisions based on risk acceptance or avoidance. Decisions are incorporated in a selection of offensive or defensive operations, a major component of the strategic plan for the incident. Those are the responsibilities of such incident commander, regardless of rank. Your sector or company officers, which are your captains and lieutenants, are expected to supervise tactical operations based on risk acceptance and avoidance in the situation they encounter within the areas they supervise. Based on their decisions is what they get information from the incident commander, and have to keep incident commander informed of any situations they encounter. And then for individual emergency responders, basically when no officers are present, they have to be called on to make personal decisions about risk acceptance and avoidance, and basically make sure that they align to the strategic plan and department policies, and also need to keep their officers informed, etc., etc. Folks, that's just going to do it for this episode of risk management practices in the fire services examined, etc., etc. Feel free to check out the link. The link to the document that we have paraphrased will be linked in the description below. Any closing thoughts that you want to share, Medic Doc, before we sign off?
Just want to say that's all very important information, and I also just want to add, as a paramedic and an EMT, you also have to take those same procedures as well. So that's why if they have to take someone to the hospital that was in a burning building, they wait until they come out to do their job to take them to the hospital.
Exactly. I have to agree with you there, Medic Doc. And as a final thought to the fact, to close out this podcast episode, folks, if you're a firefighter, feel free, and you're on an emergency scene, it is up to you, the firefighter, to run into the burning building. If you're a paramedic, please, regardless of being an emergency medical responder or a medical technician, please wait for the firefighters or rescue groups to get the person out of the burning building. Don't go running into it yourself. You're just going to put yourself in more danger, unless it is a medical call. Then if it's a medical call, you're safe to go in, unless otherwise told by the law enforcement department. That will do it for this episode, for episode 3 of our Public Safety Future Responders podcast. Stay tuned for episode 4, where we will be examining the law enforcement practices. This is Firefighter Tiger, along with co-host Medic Doc, wishing you all good day, good mental health, and we will see you all on the next edition of the Public Safety Future Responders podcast. Please note this recording is done on Monday, October 2nd. You all have a good one, and we will talk to you on another episode.
Goodbye, everyone.